Where's your hair?
Gone. Reduced to atoms.
Hello, I'm finally here with the Ex6 Norman guide. This is an extremely long video showcasing every single fight, so here's the timestamps to help navigate your way. If you're watching this video, then you probably already know what Ex6 Norman, or Cloud Mine is. So I won't waste time on doing much of an intro, or editing, or trying to be funny. Especially since I'm already kinda late finishing on the 9th day now. Here's my investment across all my units. It's mostly just SS with 1 weapon resonance on the DPS unit. My Transcendants are a bit weak with no signature weapon or hypertunes, but it's decent enough. Honestly, my investment is on the lower side for this Norman Ex6, and if your account is weaker than mine, I don't recommend trying to clear it, unless you're willing to mald pretty hard. Not as much as me since I was trying to do minimum battery clears for my skill level, but melding nonetheless. If you can't clear it, don't worry about it, since these fights have pretty ridiculous mechanics, and are scaled way too high for most players to even attempt. The actual rewards are only 100 black cards and 4 weapon resonance shards, which is barely anything. It's mostly just for bragging rights and letting everyone know that you're either bald, a megalodon, or both. The frame itself is nice, but it expires in a month, so whatever. I also want to say that I molded pretty hard for a lot of the fights, so please use more batteries than I did, since I had leftover batteries for every stage. For the boss fight, I used all the batteries, but that was because I cleared the fire stage against Siren, without using the timer bug that gives you infinite time. I basically did it just for the sake of this video to show that it's possible, but when you fight it, please just abuse the bug and save your batteries and sanity for the other fights. Anyways, the way to activate the timer bug is to be in an ultimate animation when the timer ticks to 0. It can be anyone's ultimate, Liv, Sophia, etc. That's why it's pretty common since you'll be spamming ultimates and will probably trigger it by accident anyways. I'd like to thank the cutest guild member for figuring out how to trigger it, almost. This bug is basically the only saving grace. With it, Ex6 Norman would be relatively okay for me. But without it, it would be way beyond what I would be willing to mald, if it weren't for making this guide. Although there are YouTube videos of lower investment clears already posted, from what I've seen, none seem to include the boss buff stages, some of which are even harder than the actual boss fight. I believe the common consensus ranks the shield stage the easiest, then energy, matrix, and lightning the hardest. In terms of skippability, it's shield the most skippable, lightning, energy, and matrix the least skippable. However, due to how difficult the lightning buff stage is, especially physical, it's pretty common to skip it and just cope with it in the boss fights. It might actually be less maldy overall. A few important notes. Mob grouping and controlling is very important, especially for lower investment teams like mine. You always want to be hitting at least half the wave at a time. 100% uptime on the entire wave is just wishful thinking. This involves specific strategies and positioning, which I'll explain when they come up. For grouping, the Crane pet is essential, and trying to play grouping-reliant characters such as Alpha and Bianca is extremely difficult. Here you can see an example of the crane grouping the mobs together after they start to separate. One strategy is pinning them against a corner or, more generally, at the edge of the stage so they have fewer directions to spread out. You should also try to circle the outside of the group to keep stragglers inside, a bit like a shepherd herding sheep actually. Of course, these strategies are all assuming you have kind of low investment, like mine for the mode. Those with multiple resonances in each team or SSS units can probably just brute force it. Another thing to keep in mind is that each 10 points of electricity is 1 attack buff, which gives 50 attack to the whole team. A normal unit has about 2000 attack, so giving 100 electricity to a team is equivalent to a 25% total damage increase. Basically, every point of attack buff is significant, especially for reaching damage thresholds. And of course, don't waste your electricity on health buffs. One last thing, basic attacking while also using core and QTs with Luna on phone is much harder than on PC. So phone users shouldn't expect to deal the same amount of damage as I do. Here are the general buffs I used for each team. Although, I did change some of them for the buff stages, so you'll have to refer to that specific section of the video. Starting with the second hardest buff, but the one you probably want to remove the most, Matrix Immune or Dominator, where they attack you non-stop and you barely have time to breathe. The enemies also have the closed loop buff, where they take less damage from outside the tiny circle around them, so you're forced to stay close to maximize DPS. The physical stage also has probably one of the worst mobs in the game. The tiny medic bot, which barely moves, and if you step out of melee range, it shoots a barrage of projectiles which juggle you in the air until you die. Dodge to the side so that you knock them back together. With live entry black hole to suck them together. Make sure to stay close to them inside the circles. This helps keep them close, stops them from doing their annoying ranged attack, and stops your damage from counting as ranged. Now this second part is the real challenge. Your damage reduction wears off. The medic bots spawn on opposite sides of the map, and this flying mob forces you to keep moving. So then the medic bots start shooting and you die. Luckily, I was invulnerable in Alpha Alt when it started shooting me. Look how wide those beams are. One option is to have Rosetta Ultimate ready for this wave to instantly group them. Using stun pet on live is extremely helpful for reducing the pressure, since they can at least be stunned. Once the flying mob dies, it becomes easier to deal with the two medic bots alone by sticking on them. It's important to note that the stimulation buff, which is usually overpowered with Ice Team since it applies to Plume Ultimate, is actually useless here because they are Matrix immune. There is no extra damage after Matrix ends. But the second one, Convergent, still works, so pick that one instead. Ice Stage is also rather annoying, featuring a classic favorite, Hangman. Dash to the middle of them and use Wancher Core to absorb their annoying opening attacks. They're all slippery enemies, so just try to spread out your damage, and let the AoE from ultimates do a lot of the work. Da Vinci during the explosion of Chrome Ultimate. Lightning isn't too complicated. The samurais are relatively okay, so just focus on the basics. Using crane to group them. Varicor also groups, but make sure to use it towards the center of them, so you don't shoot off to the side and miss. The second wave is more challenging since the pteropods are dangerous, and their fart move, when you get close, is so hard to see. Focus on surviving and doing safe damage such as Bianca Ultimate. Using recovery just for some healing, since damage pressure without matrix is rather high. These Musashi will naturally walk into melee range, so don't worry too much. The cowboys don't move much, so approach from the side to try to knock them back together. I didn't equip the fire pet skill because I forgot Bull was even a fire pet. I only remember it as a stun pet. I like to prepare Da Vinci proc using Karenina. Liv Emperia has really strong grouping, so you can focus on DPS. Isla Blue Ping after switchin' also sucks them.
安らかに眠ってください。苦痛という名の牢獄から。
As I mentioned before, mobile phone users shouldn't expect the same level of damage from Luna, due to difficulties in basic attacking during core while spamming everything. So load up on batteries in dark stages. Run to the side here, where you can trap them in this corner for easy grouping. If they start to veer off to the side, they'll run back to attack you anyways. Or Luna Ultimate will suck them back in. This second wave is the real hard part, where the cleaner's puddles do so much damage. Try to slowly whittle them down and switch out to Kamui if needed. It's hard to approach them because you'll probably take damage from the puddle. But luckily, they don't have a lot of health and they die to a few Luna ults. Now onto the hardest debuff that might be better to skip. Super Lightning Field, where the bolts are in a delayed cross pattern which is harder to dodge and doesn't trigger Matrix. The physical stage is absolute pain. I need 25 batteries just to have a chance. I turn on manual lock targeting mode on. Otherwise, you'll lose track of the gears, and then the flying mob makes your camera spin. Lock onto one of the gears, use crane, and keep them together. Try to also hit the flying mob at the same time whenever possible. It has less health than the gears, so it will get low just from chip damage. When the gear you've been focusing goes to around 2 or 3 bars of health, use the manual lock button to switch to the other one. You can do this during Rosetta Alt animation to make it easier. The other gear's health may vary, but start focusing it down regardless. Use Liv's stun pet to buy space. And try to survive. Ice is fine with easy mobs. Don't forget to switch back to this OP buff.
さっさと解決しないといけないね。
私は指揮官の翼です。
スケーツキー見つけましたよ。
カラスマリ、私の刃になってください。
勝たなければ無意味です。お付き合い
切り開きます。
目を閉じて安らかに眠れ。見つけましたよ。
シリカラスマリ、私の刃になってください。
勝たなければ無意味です。私の
切り開きます。
予想通りの攻撃ですね。撃殺する。目を閉じて。
Pteropods aren't a problem for Ice Team. Focus them and group with Crane and Glory Yellow.
見つけましたよ。
カラスマリ、私の刃になってください。
勝たなければ無意味です。予想通りのこの一撃で勝利への道を切り開きます。
切り開きます。
目を閉じて安らかに眠れ。
戦士、
見つけましたよ。
カラスマリ、私の刃になってください。
勝たなければ無意味です。落ち着いて
切り開きます。
この一撃で勝利への道を切り開きます。目を閉じて安らかに眠れ。見つけましたよ。
私の刃になってください。
勝たなければ無意味です。落ち着いてゲート片付けないといけないようだね。
切り開きます。
撃殺する。目を閉じて安らかに眠れ。
先人のカラスマリ、私の刃になってください。
勝たなければ無意味です。この一撃で勝利への道を切り開きます。素晴らしい戦術でした。指揮官。
Lightning mobs are slippery and hard to group and very tanky. So I needed 20 batteries. Transcendant stage isn't very hard as usual. Pay attention to grouping and it's fine.
アダージュアンダンテ演奏開始あり
ピエロショーを見て大したことじゃない
4度の時間です
観客の今だクライマックス
アダージュアンダンテオーバー私がコーダを重ねてあげましょう
やるすべてをピエロ闇を燃やすいやこれこそ闇だ道具をどこへ逃げるつもり観客の大
アダージュアンダンテ演奏開始慈悲は私がコーダを重ねてあげましょうオーバーステージ始めましょう
闇を燃やすいやこれこそ闇だ道具を今だクライマックス観客の大どこ
ロンドの時間アダージュ私がコーダを重ねてあげましょう慈悲は
ピエロショーを見てみ
ロンドの時間
道具をどこへ
ロンドの時間です
真の今だクライマックス
アリア私がコーダを重ねてあげましょう
闇を燃やすこれこそ闇だ道具をどこへ逃げるつもり
ロンドの時間アダージュアンダージュオーバーステージ私がコーダを重ねてあげましょうアリアン
これこそ闇だ道具真の今だクライマックス真の
ロンドの時間アダージュ私がコーダを捧げてあげましょうアリアン
ピエロショーを見てみ
ロンドの時間
闇を燃やすいや違うこれこそ闇だ敵はどこにだっているさっさと次の戦闘に向けて準備を
Fire team just needs to be careful of firefighters burning floor and all good.
最初に面白いことになりたいのは誰かしら死ね地獄に落ちろ苦難はここで燃やし尽くされます希望が肝心から生まれ変わります
Position to knock the enemies towards each other like so.
最悪は全て私と共に刻印返します
Always put a firefighter between you and the other so they stay close together. Spam orbs to heal and pray you survive. Use at least 10 batteries here, unless you're really confident in grouping. Out of batteries? Well, this lightning buff stage is the hardest after all. Might be easier to skip and try doing the bosses instead. Keep circling around the outside to stop stragglers while using crane to group. Really just pretend you're a dog herding sheep on a farm. If they do escape, using Luna's ultimate will group them together again. Eventually, trapping them against a corner is also extremely useful. Now I'll be showing the boss fights, because you probably care more about that than the remaining, relatively easier buff stages. This middle convergent buff is actually really strong for physical, especially because Alpha and Rosetta both stand still to use their core passives. And the damage reduction makes me feel invincible, except not really. Of course, in the later half of the fight, you'll still need to dodge attacks that could one-shot you. Honestly, there's not much to say about this fight. Voodoo has some jerky quick attacks that I can't dodge properly, and some slow telegraphed attacks that are very easy to matrix dodge off. Stand still for the stage buff during Alpha and Rosetta Core. Bull Pet Stun doesn't work on Voodoo, but Rosetta's Horse Pet Snare still does. Abuse Matrix Uptime to reduce threat, and Live does decent damage. One-shot potential is very high near the end of the fight, so using ultimates to reduce risk is a safe bet. The power of standing still. Having to fight both phases of Gabriel's Starfall sounds pretty daunting, until you realize you're playing Ice Team, which has the highest uptime of invulnerability, and you can spend a vast portion of the fight in glory parries and ultimate animations and matrix. Just using the normal plume combo is enough for me to get a 10 battery clear without much trouble, even though I wasn't really comfortable fighting him yet. The timer does tick during his death animation, but it's only about 10 seconds off. You can also turn on manual lock mode, since his boomerang can mess with your targeting. When he started doing his supernova attack, my first instinct was to hide. Before remembering that I'm playing Ice Team and shouldn't be scared of some damage over time. Lamia isn't too scary, although it can be rough playing Bianca in high difficulty modes. Her glowing red spears can be easily parried with Vera's red ping to deal 4 bars of damage, which is pretty decent. This isn't like parry ball, where you get extremely punished for missing parries. So I personally would rather just focus on my own combos. Pain Cage gamers would know this rotation from using it against Siren. Double Vera QTE spread out over 2 Bianca cores into Vera full stack entry core slam. Next up is Transcendant Zone, and it's very easy. The boss just stands there doing telegraph swings. And if that wasn't enough, there's sweeping laser beams that are extremely easy to matrix dodge off. The only thing to note is during his last 8 bars, he will do high AoE damage that slowly petrifies you. So you will need to burst him or use strong defensive moves such as Camus and Selena Ultimate. I initially beat Siren with no batteries over 4.5 minutes by abusing the timer bug. But then I went back afterwards to dump my remaining 17 batteries and beat it without the bug, just for the sake of this video. I would highly recommend just triggering the infinite time limit bug to save your batteries and your sanity. By the way, if you missed it in the intro, the way to activate the timer bug is to be in ultimate animation when the timer ticks down to 0. Any character's ultimate is fine. Once you have unlimited time, beating Siren isn't hard. Its attacks are mostly telegraphed, and Livimpria has a lot of healing and damage reduction. Here's the fight without the bug. Wait, so if none of the previous boss fights can be categorized as extremely painful to fight, and can be beaten without too many batteries. Granted, physical needs quite a few due to the nature of physical damage. Then what's the problem? Oh yeah, the problem is definitely Riot. There's many choice words that you can use to describe it, but I'll just say that it's irritating. But do not fret, I have a solution for you. A strategy that should somewhat minimize the pain, or at least give you a plan instead of being at its mercy. So his most hated move, where he flies into the air and gives you a laser show, is forcefully triggered at around 70 and 40 health bars. But the problem is that he can also seemingly do it whenever he wants, although it's possible for Riot to not ascend until 70 bars. In reality, it's very rare, unless your damage is much higher than what's needed to win. And in that case, you probably wouldn't be struggling then. Anyways, very often it seems to fly at 80 bars of health. This can be done with 2 combos pretty reliably, especially if you invest some extra batteries just to reduce mald. The combos I choose to do is an initial 3-stack core, which is when the core bar is 3/4 full. I don't do a full 4-stack core because it takes too long to exit without ulting. Then the next time my QTs are ready, I do a 3-stack core with only Kamui QT, then use ultimate with Vera and Kamui QT together enabled by Da Vinci. This is called double QTE. Now at 80 bars, it will almost certainly fly within the next 5 seconds after it finishes its current attack. So switch to Vera to prepare for the laser show, and kill the mobs quickly with QTE. Since you preemptively switched, Luna is off cooldown faster, ready to burst the remaining health bars until 70. Where you hold off on ulting because it will just disappear regardless. You spend the laser show with Vera and Kamui again. When Riot lands, you have a window to burst it. Repeat the double QT strategy while spamming dodge for Matrix just to be certain it won't fly. From here, it will be at 55 bars, where it's uncertain whether it will fly or not. But when QT and Matrix are ready, just do the combo again, and if you get a Matrix during core, ultimate immediately, so the damage lands for sure. After such a beating, it will surely fly and you'll be ready for it. After its final flight at 40 bars, I'm fairly certain it won't fly again, so you can combo it with confidence that you won't miss. It can rise briefly then slam the ground, so don't get tricked. Although from here on, it will spew fire on the ground, so you might need to switch to stay safe. Basically wait for the windows where you can burst confidently and not waste your damage. Now here's the actual full fight, where you can hopefully follow the strategy. Anyways, here's Iron Shield stage. The buffs I use are mostly the same as my general setup, except for this Transcendant stage. I had to switch it to probably the strongest buff, because I was having trouble with it for some reason. I also had to use 15 batteries to barely win when guildmates and YouTubers cleared it with 0 batteries while having similar or weaker Transcendent teams. It's only for this buff stage in particular as well. Honestly, I would recommend you skip watching this shield debuff Transcendent fight, in case you get infected with my skill issue. Approach them from the side for better crane grouping. Live switch and ping has decent grouping too. If one gets separated, don't worry and just keep in line with it so that your sword waves or Rosetta core still hits them. Try to position so that you can group them with crane. If they happen to separate, the next Rosetta ultimate will group them again. Ice doesn't actually need 10 batteries since I had 50 seconds left, but that was with decent grouping. Slowly walk up and stay in the middle of them. If they separate, you can try using chrome yellow to group them. Hitting 2 at a time is good enough. I dash closer to the center of them so that my Chrome ultimate hits all of them, while using Da Vinci on the explosion. Bianca shoots in a rather narrow straight line, so make sure to line the enemies up. While Vericorn naturally gathers them, but make sure you're using it towards the center of the enemies, so you don't go off to the side and miss. So here is my cursed Transcendant fight. I guess these enemies were too hard for me to group properly, or my rotation was bad. But seriously, watch at your own discretion.
さと次の戦闘に向けて準備を始めろ。
Karenina's signature weapon is a 3% damage increase over a 5-star one, by the way. And using Chrome's weapon for stats.
最初に面白いことになりたいのは誰かしら？
I prefer using Karenina Yellow just to prepare Da Vinci. My Live Empiria gameplay isn't that good, so I do make a few mistakes. Go to the center of the mobs and attack the middle one. Most important focus are the royal guards since they have more health. So that was the easiest buff stage. Not much to say. We don't talk about the Transcendant incident here. Next up is energy loss. I'm not really going to bother explaining standard combos since I'm short for time. Buffs are the same as previous, except I use a safer option in the recovery buff. So there's a trend of physical stage being the hardest with similar investment.
私を見た者は深淵に消えるのよ。
Attack from the side where they're less spread out.
信用
Focus the gun ones, since the bear will run to you if it's far away. Rosetta Ultimate for easy grouping upon spawn. Ice is pretty quick and easy. As usual, go to the middle. Ideally focus the pteropods since they just shoot you from range. Chrome Glory grouping.
私の刃になってください。これが最後の戦いだといいですね、指揮官。みんなを守る。私についてくる。私の邪魔するの。私の痛み。
Circle the group like you're herding sheep and focus the royal guards. Now this is the number of batteries that a Transcendant stage should be consuming. Focus the squids. These have the buff which teleports them to you if they go far away.
最初に面白いことになりたいのは誰かしら？最初に面白いことになりたいのは誰かしら？邪魔するな！
し